Welcome to the AI Frame podcast, a space where we explore how founders, innovators, and investors are navigating the world of artificial intelligence. Each episode brings you thoughtful conversations with people redefining how technology meets strategy, separating what's real from what is noise. I'm Ana Rojo-Taurua, doctor in mathematics, AI consultant and strategist, and your host. So grab a coffee and let's frame the future of AI together. Today's guest is Joe MacDonald, founder and CEO of Scoutd.ai, an AI-powered talent identification platform that's rethinking how football clubs make one of the most important decisions, and that is recruitment. Scoutd.ai isn't just another tool layered on top of existing data. It rethinks the approach from modeling club DNA to combining structured data with a football-native language model and generating predictive intelligence around player development and value. Joe brings a really interesting background in recruitment, which plays directly into how he's built both the product and the team behind it. So today, we're going to talk about AI strategy, building real AI products, hiring in early stage AI startups, and what it actually takes to turn intelligence into competitive advantage. So welcome to the podcast, Joe. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for having me here. It seems like it's been a long time coming.
I know Joe for a long time. We connected on LinkedIn and I've been amazed about what he's building. So it's such a pleasure to have him on the podcast today. Since I ask this question to every single guest of the podcast, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and also what is your mission?
Sure. I mean, I think it's difficult for me to do a better job than you did, Anna, there. But yeah, so my name's Joe. I'm the founder and CEO of Scoutd.ai, and we are exactly what you said, an AI-powered talent identification platform geared towards football. Our overall mission is that, we hope we can do this across multiple sports and on a global scale. But, my background in professional football, tech recruitment, and now this, I think, has set me up in a unique way to kind of help drive this forward. And you alluded to something there about being able to build a team, and we have an amazing team behind the platform, behind the product, and behind the business. So, yeah, I'm new to entrepreneurship. This is my first business that I've ever started, and learning something every day. But other than that, I'm a family man, and like to spend as much time as I can with my family. But at the same time, I'm working late at night to try and get this business going. So. Yeah, it's fun times at the minute.
Where do you see a problem in the recruitment process in football? When do you thought, okay, I think there's a problem here and I can solve it with AI?
The inspiration for Scoutd actually didn't come from football. So I'm actually a huge NFL fan, and I spent a little bit of my childhood growing up in America. So my love for American sports kind of blossomed quite naturally. And they have this amazing process. If those of you know it, the NFL draft, it's a big spectacle in the US, and they follow these prospects from high school, college, and then into the professional game. And it's such a highly detailed analytical process, but also very visual. And I think I just thought to myself, there's got to be some form of technology that supports that process. And but I obviously have never had any experience working in the NFL before. So, gearing that towards football, obviously, it seems like a long time ago now, but obviously I have played at a professional level, and so my immediate network was within that. So I started to just do some more research, and was met with quite a pleasant overview of that there are platforms out there, and there is technology out there, and football clubs are harnessing data more and more and more. That's not a new story, but I think the way that they harness it, there seems to be a divide between the traditional scout and the data analyst. And I think the two of them, when they work together, it's extremely powerful. And when they work separately, well, I think that's when poor decisions are potentially made. And the stat line that I probably lead with is that 60% of transfers actually fail. So, whether you're spending 100 grand in the transfer market or 100 million in the transfer market, 60% of that is quite a large chunk. So the view with Scoutd is that we can help football clubs make those informed decisions better, and, make decisions under uncertainty, which I think is really important.
You've actually built something that is not just another LLM with a wrapper on top, right? It goes beyond that. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the architect without telling us anything that is secret, right? Nothing top secret. But if you can tell us a little bit more about the architecture of the AI product that you built.
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, look, and I hold my hand up and say that I'm not a technical person, nor am I a data person. So that obviously provides its unique challenges on a daily basis as well. But the architecture of our platform is essentially, even if you remove the large language model, it's still one of the most unique analytics platforms on the market today. So, the large language model is playing into the hands of modern technology. We want information at our fingertips faster. We want to get that information easier. No one wants a clunky drop-down menu.
Yeah.
No one wants to have to click lots of different boxes. It's a clunky, old-school process. So, the large language model that lives within Scoutd is football native. So you can ask a question in football language, and you get the data back for that question. And obviously there's other layers where we have our proprietary models, whether that's around our unique bespoke club DNA functionality and the model around that, or whether it's around the transfer value or the potential value and growth of players. The large language model sits within it. There's a lot of different ontology and colloquialisms within football. One of the phrases I like to use, because I think it bamboozles people who don't know much about football, is, find me a fox in the box. And it's like, well, what is that? And actually, you're looking for, a striker who scores lots of goals within the penalty area and, left foot, right foot, headed goals, etc. Our platform knows that and understands that. So, I think it gives scouts that edge that, ultimately don't necessarily understand data to the full extent, but they can access it in a way that they understand it. And likewise, we hope then empowers the data analyst as well.
One thing that I see a lot, especially in startups that are building AI-powered products, and I say it like this because it's
Scoutd.
No. As in the classic. There's an element running in the back end, and there's not much apart from that. One of the issues that I see is that they use a very generic large language model. For certain applications, I think that is okay. But if you want something specialized, as you're saying, right, something that understands the language of, a particular topic or something that is really technical, you do need something more specialized. So our generic large language model is just not going to work for that. So it's understanding what models to use to do this and how do you make it specialized. So sometimes just direct architecture works fine, but for certain domains, I think it's important to consider, I'm not saying that is always the solution, but consider fine-tuning models. And sometimes not even like a large language model, sometimes even just a small language model. You touched on the club DNA feature, and I want you to talk a little bit more about that, because I find that is something really interesting, and it ties a lot with measuring outputs of large language models, because I find that it's something really subjective. And I wonder, how do you do it so you can measure it?
My first answer is get a group of really smart data analysts and scientists and get them in a room together and let them hash it out. Look, it's a great question. And it was, funnily enough, when I first founded Scoutd, we had a small selection of clubs that were kind of open to letting me come in, do some analysis of their current scouting process and talk to them about what I wanted to build with Scoutd. And ultimately, they actually, they helped us design what Scoutd is now, which is why we know it works for professional clubs. But the question that came out that led us to developing the DNA model was, okay, you build this platform and it's really fast, it's really accurate, but then if every team has the platform, which, by the way, would be brilliant. But if every team has the platform, then we all have the same advantage. So we're all finding the same players as fast as each other. So it essentially is, the race is still on. And I thought it's a really good point, because obviously one half of me was like, well, yeah, but buy the platform then and you'll get there faster. But I don't think that was the right way to approach the problem. So actually, what can we do to give each club a bespoke experience of using Scoutd? And that was when the DNA model was formed. So the idea is that not just taking your classic football data and different kind of goal models or assist models or possession models, and actually what can we pull from the data that leans into tactical philosophy and aggression, physicality, intensity, pressing intensity, passing styles, creative, risk-taking, risk aversion. How can we build a model that actually takes that in? Because it's not just about who's playing and the manager managing that team. It's actually how they're playing football. When the fans go to watch the team at the weekend, what is their identity as a club? You know, are they physical? You know, do they like to tackle hard and press high and put that team under pressure? Or do they sit back? Do they play possession football? Do they control the narrative with the ball at their feet? You know, and we wanted to really kind of capture that, because not only do we want you to get to the players faster in the database, we then want you to know if they're going to fit in your team.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to, again, de-risk that transfer process of, okay, we like this player, he ticks our boxes, but as soon as we plunk him into our team, is he actually going to work? Or is she actually going to work? So I think there was that narrative, and hence, the DNA model was born, so that every single club using the platform now has a bespoke score that no other club in the world will have. So when they're looking at the same data set of players, it's almost irrelevant, because you know, it actually steers you away from players that are not right for you and steers you towards players that hopefully are.
That's so interesting. And that works for any single team sport, really. So this could be recycled.
Even outside of sports.
Even outside of sport, actually. Yeah. So, for example, to see if someone actually fits in, I don't know, in a company, for example, right? Yeah. Or you for like social groups and stuff. Yeah. Very interesting. Well, there you have. You can have like 5 different.
It's almost like there's method to the madness.
Yeah, totally. That is great. I want you to tell me a little bit more about the hiring process. So you have this background in recruitment, and I want to know what approach did you take for the hiring process to build your team, and also if you can give people building startups, so early stage of building a startup, advice on how to hire people.
Oddly enough, it's the thing that I'm probably the only thing I'm really good at. You know, genuinely, and if you spoke to some of our investors and the people around the table, that's what they'd probably say. That was my strength as well. But you play to your strengths. So recruitment was. I think like a lot of people will resonate, kind of fell into recruitment. I had no intention of working in recruitment, but then, managed to carve out a really great career. Naturally able to build rapport with people and build relationships, and that then really helped, especially when I was looking for someone to come and advise me technically. There's a guy that is advising us now called Matt Skillen, Director of Technology at British Airways. Not a lot of startups can lean into that kind of experience and actually, whether that's on the pitch deck or in meetings or actually building the platform, having those experienced people around the table are really important. And Matt's a big Wycombe Wanderers fan, so again, he loves football. You've got to love football to support Wycombe Wanderers. So as I joke with him, sorry if there's any Wycombe Wanderers fans that watch this. Again, and I'd known Matt for maybe 5 or 6 years beforehand. So it was only then when I started Scoutd and kind of as a friend told him about it, he expressed wanting to help me. And I think that's it, really. I mean, our operations advisor, Sam, unfortunately, we were going to try and meet up with her, weren't we? I mean, she's, ex-DAZN and IAG and the Ellison Institute of Technology, and now she's involved with the Glasgow Commonwealth. She's advising us from an operations perspective. And it's like, you kind of look around the table and go, wow, there are some really impressive people here. And I'm not even got on to the data team and others. But for me, my experience is it wasn't that I necessarily planned to go and get these people, but just by, talking to people about what I was doing and hearing their excitement and hearing them kind of think out loud about what they would help me with, it then was a natural kind of conversation started to say, well, why don't you come and help me? Why don't you actually become part of the Scoutd family? And, there's a piece in it for you. And I think that's probably my second message to whether you're a founder or founders with a startup is don't be afraid to give a little piece of your company away, because you don't know how much of an impact that has on people and how special they feel because they're now part of something and they now have an ownership of something. Don't get me wrong, they don't have to sit on the board, and I mean that respectfully, even to my own advisory pool, but, they then believe in you and they're dedicated to your mission, because the more the company grows, the more successful the business is, it also benefits them. And I think you've got to take them on a journey. And I recommend to anybody to look into Jeff Bezos and his manifesto and the way that he built Amazon. You've got to get people to come on a journey with you and give them something in return for it.
Something that you say I think is really important is the not being afraid of giving away a bit of your company. If you do that, then they actually feel that they belong. Don't give away probably like 80% of your company to random people that want to be part of it.
Do you want 100% of nothing or 50% of something?
Yeah, but
what's your trade-off?
What is your trade-off exactly? So I think it's about finding a balance, and that ties into the conversation about investors. What do they make them invest in a company like yours?
It's a good question. And, we were quite lucky. I mean, I've got an amazing investor who's also come on as our chairman called Tom Griffin, and he's a serial entrepreneur, very successful in different disciplines. Never actually done anything in football before,
right.
but that gives a unique perspective and lens as well. And especially when it comes to contract negotiation, licensing, compliance, he's the perfect person to have around the table because he's done it before. So I think when you are having those conversations with investors, again, it's kind of like not just only are they going to invest in your company, but make them feel like they can bring something to the table that actually adds value, and again, make them feel part of the mission. And not every investor will take that view. Sometimes they just, here's the money. Good luck to you. But I think my advice for a founder is find somebody that wants to be part of it rather than just, good luck to you, because actually you'll grow so much more. Our investment journey was really quite a fortunate one, I think, because I'd never fundraised before, but we raised the funding in 8 weeks. So, I founded the company in February last year, and then by the end of April, we'd finished our raise successfully. So, and cool. I kind of told people that, and they were like, that's amazing. I was like, is it?
It is, I'm telling you.
I didn't know, I didn't realize, and my conversation with Tom was, he was on holiday in Antigua, and he'll tell the story the same way. He was going to give me 15 minutes of his time and politely decline. Right. An hour and a half later, we're still on the phone, and I'm interrupting his holiday because I think it was compelling enough. And I think AI is the easy buzzword. I've got an AI startup, so you think that that's immediately going to get investors interested. From my experience, it was actually Tom invested in me, not the company. And that's not me trying to big myself up. But what I mean is I think Tom could see me as someone that was going to go the distance, that was going to roll with the punches and be positive in the downturns and be measurable in the upturns. That's what Tom invested in. So Scoutd's success, of course, is what he wants. But ultimately, he's backed me to go and do that. So I think that's what my advice to a founder is: don't just make it totally product led. There are so many fantastic ideas out there. But who's behind them? And that's what they're going to invest in.
You do need to align with the product strategy. And especially in AI, there are a lot of investors that invest in AI just because it's AI.
Yeah.
Not because they believe in the product, or they really think that the person that leading that company is going to be successful. No, it's because they want to invest in AI because AI is the latest thing, and the hype. And that is a problem, because you want your investor to understand the product and understand why AI makes sense in that particular solution, right? Yeah. And therefore believe that you can actually, drive that product to success.
Well, that's a pitfall, right? With the AI, if you lead with AI, a lot of investors don't really understand what AI is still, you believe it or not. So even in this day and age, so actually lead with your solution, talk about how AI fits into it, and our use case for AI, as you know, is the speed, the ability to pull from large data sets. We're using AI, I believe, in a very appropriate manner for our solution. Don't just make it AI for the sake of it. Don't even make it AI if you don't have to. I know we're on an AI podcast, but that's just general advice, is if you have a great solution, regardless of how it's pulled together, lead with that.
And you were talking about that your investor was experiencing aspects like governance and compliance, how you make sure that your solution meets any regulatory requirements.
Having someone like Tom around the table, whether that's around compliance or the legal side of it, these people like Tom who have been there before and done it, they come armed with, I know this lawyer that can do this, and I know this company that can do with that. So that's a really useful starting point. In terms of data, this is always a great conversation. There's a lot of products out there, especially using AI, that will scrape. Now, we don't. So it's a little bit more costly on the bottom line, but I promise you, long term, it's the right solution to go and pay or strike up a partnership to get gold standard quality data from a single, or I say multiple sources, you're talking maybe 3 or 4 different sources, right? If your niche is narrow enough to do that, I mean, ours is, but I understand that scraping data can be accepted in certain industries and for certain products and is necessary for certain products. We haven't done that, so I don't know what the regulations around that would be, but my method was like, I want to go and get this data set because I know it's fantastic and I want to work with this company. As it kind of becomes a selling point of our platform as well. And then when we have this conversation, I don't have to turn around and go, oh, yeah, it's a bit grey and we get data from here and there. We don't have that problem. So big companies, enterprise level companies entering into a conversation with us, they know where our data's coming from, never mind, anyone else.
Sometimes paying a little bit more for certain things or making the data collection process a little bit longer, or maybe spending more time in architecture can become a unique selling point. For Change Tools, we do things in where we can promise our clients a couple of several things, like your data is going to be secure. Your data is not going to go to a data center in the US and they're not going to use your data to train whichever large language model. So things like that have become part of a selling strategy. And in that way, we've been managed to convince a lot of clients to purchase our product against like big competitors because of that. Sometimes the features of your product is not that you're doing something different, as in like you're creating a different product. It's how you are developing the product and how these little things differ from the competitive advantage, and how much your client can trust how their data is being used, and how is basically managed and where does it go, and if it's safe and secure.
No, absolutely. Privacy is becoming more and more of a thing. I mean, but this is, look, and again, I'm not a technologist, but this is it, isn't it? There's a trend. People drive themselves towards that trend without thinking about the consequence. Then they get to the destination and then they worry. They go, actually, we've missed out a couple of big steps here. You're absolutely right. And I think it is we've seen the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's run towards it without thinking about the necessary steps that you should take along the way. So again, coming back to recruitment and having advisors around the table or recruiting the right people, for a startup, bring people into the conversation that are going to help you with those necessary steps and make sure you get the right guardrails in place, because it's all right when you're picking up a couple of customers, but then if you go and like for us, if we go and want to do like a deal with a league, they're going to want to make sure that we're compliant in so many different ways. And as a startup, you kind of go, I don't know if we are. Actually, if you get those things in place, it will separate you from every other startup. Yeah,
exactly. You see clearly what you want to build and you rush towards it, right? And we see this all over social media, like I don't know what are the stats, but like 90% of prototypes don't make it into production, right? That
was a good impression. Not sure who you were impersonating, but it was a good one. Yeah. Oh dear. Oh, that was funny.
So I see that a lot, but I don't think there's enough conversation about why. Right.
We see all these things, even whether it's on X or on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, this Claude has changed the game. It's like it's killing 90% of startups. It's like, no, it's not, because and the thing is, I speak to a lot of people about this, and don't get me wrong, I use Anthropic myself. I'm not dissing the company, but when you want to build an infrastructure layer to scale on top of, you need to do your due diligence to do that, and you need to build it properly. AI is brilliant. Claude is brilliant. There are lots of other different things that you can use, but people are knocking up prototypes and posting them and saying, "Oh, this is going to be," and sadly, it's not there yet. Maybe it will be one day, but it's not.
But no, it's not there yet, and it's how you use these AI tools to assist their development. But it's not replacing every single person. I don't know one single person that doesn't have a background in AI engineering or software development or anything that is related to programming that has created like a POC with, I don't know, a Lovable, Replit, or using Cloud Code, whatever, that has gone beyond that.
We built our infrastructure layer, laced with AI, so that when we do build new features, it won't break. And rather than or building the technology, then trying to kind of cram AI into it somewhere, or having to scale backwards to get AI in somewhere, because that's what a lot of companies do, and they'll claim that they have AI as part of their platform, and actually it's like a button. It's like, oh, summarize. Okay, that's a good use of AI. So there's a lot of false claims out there, or kind of being facetious with their use of AI. But that's it. So our mission is that we want to build the AI infrastructure layer for football and maybe for sport. And that's why, when we are building new features like, a youth hub to track internal scouting, not just external scouting, which is one of the things that we're working on in the background now, we can plug it in. It's not going to cause us. I say too much. Look, there'll be developers watching this going, yeah, it's not as easy as you think. It's not. But what I mean is there'll be less headaches, and it's just a little bit more succinct. So
it's easier in the long term.
Correct, and that's why we've done it that way.
Yeah, really cool. So since you've been talking a little bit more about stuff that you're working on, what is next for Scoutd.ai?
Have certain models that we're bringing to the market that we think will be really impactful. So our transfer value model, we believe it's one of the most accurate that's going to be out there. I won't name competitors, but we think it's going to be far more useful to football clubs than what is publicly available. On the back of that, we are then we're bringing to the fray our potential transfer value model, which obviously takes the original but adds that predictive layer on top of it. So actually it's this player is currently worth X. In the next 2 to 3 years, we think they will be worth Y. Obviously, that's subject to making sure that those players are still playing the minutes and performing, etc. We're not, we don't have a crystal ball, but we're doing our best to use the information and the data and incoming information to make that interpretation. So there's that, and then we also have our model we're calling Alpha. So we had to change the name because originally it was PPPG. It stands for Predicted Player Performance Growth.
Right, okay.
So PPPG, and it was like, when you're in one of those meetings and there's like 3 or 4 of you and you're going, yeah, so PPPG and PPPG, it's like, we need to stop saying this. This is just, so we called it Alpha. So in finance, you look at an alpha stock versus the beta performance and the alpha performance. So we're looking for the alpha players that are outperforming their stock value. So that's going to be one of the models that comes to the fray this year. So they're the most prominent on the horizon. I mean, there are probably some things that I can't talk about. There are others that I might be able to. But I think the other thing that we've gotten to a lot quicker than we anticipated was cross sport. We have a couple of opportunities to work with organisations, stateside, which oddly enough was my aspiration when I started Scoutd. That was a sort of 12 to 18 month plan. That's been accelerated significantly. So, look, we'll see what happens.
Talking a little bit more about AI startups in general, what do you think people get wrong about AI startups? As in, not for people building startups, but misconceptions around AI startups.
And I think every founder of an AI startup will agree with me, is that I think people think it's easier than it is. And I think that is partly because of what we discussed earlier about public perception of AI. And I think people think that they can just get Replit and they've got an app and they can sell it. I'm sure if there was someone here from Replit today, they would tell me that is absolutely possible. Yes. Of course they would. But I think that's it, is that, look, AI is brilliant. There's no skirting around it, but it has its limitations. I mean, Claude called me James the other day. My name's Joe, obviously, and I've been using it for a long time now. But it was like, oh, no worries, James. It's like, you're still getting my name wrong. What else are you getting wrong? And That's not me being a skeptic. I mean, I'm the founder of an AI startup, so of course I believe in the mission. I think it's just a warning shot that it's not 100%. It's not there yet. And I think that's probably a really silly example, but it's also the truth. And I think that an AI startup, it's brilliant because you can move pretty quickly. It's a great time to do it because it's again, public perception. It's exciting. Investors are excited by this. People are turning their heads to it more and more often and trying to build solutions with it. But I would actually really respect a company that was like, no, we're not building with AI. We can build a solution without it. AI seems like the easy route now. And I think that's such a weird dynamic flip. And, I think the reality of it is that regardless of whether you're using AI or not, software and technology is still difficult. And it still comes with lots of headaches, whether you're making decisions from a business perspective or from a product perspective, or, I know it sounds ridiculous, but picking one feature over another feature, and do those features work together, or whatever the conundrum is. I think none of it's easy. But what I would say to any founders or aspiring founders that want to have an AI startup or have one is that dream big, because you have to think about what the possibilities are, and the mix of AI technology and people and relationships will get you there.
Yeah.
But it's a blend of them all. You can't just, you hear these stories about people that have built an app in their bedroom and stuff, and credit to them, but they're obviously really insanely smart people as well. So you can't take the credit away from them. Whereas like me, if I was doing it on my own, I mean, God, we wouldn't be having this conversation probably. So I think it's a little bit of just like, look, dream big, think about the art of the possible. AI has made more things possible than ever before. So lean into that. But you still need to bring a wealth of experience and passion and motivation and everything to get it done.
I totally agree with the dream big. And something that I always say is that you won't get somewhere if you don't think that you can get there. Right?
Of course, yeah.
So the only way to get here is that if you work towards here, right?
Yeah.
If you don't pursue that, you will never get there. Regarding the startups that they are not using AI for developing the solutions, I actually know these guys. I'll put it in the comments and I'll pop it somewhere when I make a reels. They're basically developing a scoring system for a hybrid competition. And I mention it here because we're talking about sports.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because what they're trying to do is they're trying to make hybrid fitness competitions fair. And I think it's a really good concept. And it's really cool because they are not using any AI to do this. They are using statistics and probability, so plain mathematics. And I was having a chat with the CEO, and he was talking about how they developed this metric and why they were not using AI. And it was so refreshing to hear someone talking about no, I don't need the AI for this, and we're not using it. It's not justified. The third thing that I wanted to mention is that I think one big misconception that I see a lot when people hear the word AI startup is the believing that is generative AI powered, right? So they think that is going to be some sort of assistant, some sort of agent, that there's an LM behind, and that is it. But it can be, I don't know, it can be something totally different. It can be computer vision, it can be predictive analytics, it can be a recommended system. That is also an AI product. And I feel like there's lots of people thinking still that AI is generative AI and that's it. I went to a conference in Madrid a couple of weeks ago, and this guy in this talk was saying that from the people that use AI, I think it was like 92% or something like that of people think that AI is using ChatGPT and Copilot, right? And I thought that is like the vast majority of people that had some interaction with any AI think that AI is that.
Oh, hugely. And I think that's, I mean, you make a point there that makes me want to kind of shout out to the data team that we have. All the models are built in-house. There's no use of AI when putting our models together. These are scientists at the top of their game. They're very good at what they do, and our two lead data scientists, actually. It's quite funny because those of you that know football well and know football analytics well will know Dr. Ian Graham. He's a huge inspiration to many of us within the football analytics space. But I have two data scientists, and one is called Ian and one is called Graham. So we have our own Ian Graham. But I mean, together, these guys, discovered a fifth season. Autumn, winter, summer. There's actually a fifth season that sits between autumn and winter, and they discovered it. Don't get me wrong, I know that's not really football related, but what I mean is these people are on a different level, and by trying to lean into AI too much, you kind of squash that, and you take away what is unique about them. Because let's not just forget is that everyone has access to AI, so AI will always put that kind of generic. I'll use the term wrapper, but that generic spin on things. It kind of leans into the personal pieces. What makes it unique and special is the people that are working on things behind the scenes. I mean, like I say, we talked about use cases. AI is fast, so use it to be fast. And I think that's you try and use it to do too many things, I think you're pushing the boundaries. But if you can be really selective and focused on what you're using it for, then I think it can have really huge implications.
The thing is about saying, okay, for what can I use AI tools and what makes sense to, well, you were talking about being more efficient, and in this case, what I can automate with this. And at the end of the day, is what you're saying, you want that, personal input, and is about using AI to assist your work.
And that's how we hope our platform is viewed within football clubs. We're not replacing scouts and data analysts.
Yeah.
We're ultimately, the scout is still the hero of the story.
Yeah.
But, this is your trusty steed. This is your support mechanism, and to help you make those decisions.
Well, look, I think we're going to leave it here. But thank you so much for the conversation.
No, it's my pleasure.
I'm pretty sure that everyone will love this episode.
Well, I hope so. No, honestly, obviously it's been a long time coming, but I'm grateful. Thank you for having me on, and it's been really enjoyable. And maybe again in the future too.
Cool. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tana.
Thank you for listening to the AI Friend podcast. If you like this episode, follow the show and share with someone who would love it too. I'm Ana Rojo Turua, and I'll see you next time for another conversation that reframes how we think about AI.